Okay, let's jump right into it. Mistake number 12, replacing a LS truck intake with sparkly Chinese junk. Do not do this. I don't care how shiny the intake is. If you've seen my intake video, you know these truck intakes perform amazingly well. In fact, this TBSS style intake has outperformed all other LS and aftermarket intakes in test after test. These truck intakes are actually even better than the car intakes because they are bigger. The engineers had more space to design in more power and torque. Only replace these if you need a lower intake to fit under your hood. If you must get a Chinese intake because the truck one is too tall or you think they look cool, just know that you are certainly losing horsepower and likely across the entire power band. If you need a low profile intake, I strongly recommend a used OEM car intake if you can find and afford one. Links below. Mistake number 11, insisting on using a carburetor. Please do not be afraid of fuel injection. You may say, I'm a carb guy and I've always have been. Fine, but know that you are giving up precise fuel delivery across different conditions. Your car will idle better, cruise better, and perform better at wide open throttle. Cold starts will be easier. The ECU knows the outside temperature and adjusts automatically. Fuel injection will also adjust for altitude and humidity. There is no need to ever rejet or tweak anything. Diagnostics are easier too. You can plug in a $20 Amazon diagnostics unit into the OBD2 port and it will tell you what's wrong with your engine. Have you ever had a carburetor that has a flat spot? Fuel injection never has that. It gives you crisper throttle response and better mid-range power thanks to consistent fuel atomization and delivery. Also, carburetor floats are more likely to get starved for fuel under high G loads when driving aggressively. A carb can also flood the engine and foul the plugs when things don't work right, possibly leaving you stranded. Yes, fuel injection is more complex, but worth it in the long run. Mistake number 10, not checking the engine before you buy it. I'm not going to read through this list, pause if you want to, but there are many things you can do to check the engine, whether it is still running, or the engine's not running, or it's already out of the vehicle. These are relatively simple but super effective checks that can be very telling, and these checks can save you from buying a useless chunk of metal. I have a more detailed list with how-to directions in my LS Swap Survival Guide ebook. Mistake number 9, not considering an LS with an aluminum block. Yes, they do cost more, but they are 100 pounds lighter. Maybe not so important if you have a 6,000 pound off-road rig or truck for towing, but seriously important if you have a 3,300 pound classic car like the first-gen Camaro or a G-body. Old cars are already front heavy, so any weight you can remove from the front of the car brings them closer to the optimal 50-50 weight distribution, which improves handling, braking, and acceleration. And I know most of you are planning a build under 700 horsepower, and as you can see, the aluminum block is plenty strong for that. On the right is a list of 14 aluminum block LS engines. Consider the pretty affordable and often forgotten aluminum Gen 4 5.3. Mistake number 8. All the LS cylinder heads are great. You almost certainly don't need to swap your LS cylinder heads. Even LS1 and small valve 706 heads are perfect. There are 20 LS cylinder heads, but you only need to care about the ones here, and they are all good. Watch my video on LS cylinder heads to learn more. A stock cathedral port head can handle 500 horsepower naturally aspirated, and rec port heads can handle 650 horsepower naturally aspirated. So unless you have more power than that, do not even think about swapping the heads. If you plan to go turbo, you don't need to upgrade heads until you get over 1,000 horsepower. Yes, a ported LS head is usually as good as an aftermarket head, but again, only port if you are already above these power numbers. Focus your money on other things. With the LS, a cam swap should be absolute #1 priority before anything else. I actually have a poster of my LS cylinder head video and some other fun posters. Check them out at autogild.com. Mistake 7, using outdated 1960s cooling methods. There are 4 main things a LS cooling system needs to perform. A radiator. The most affordable and best option is to use a new or reproduction 1-row aluminum radiator that came from a vehicle that had a LS engine. Links to 5 different size radiators are in my ebook. Connect all 4 steam vents and route them correctly. Do not block these. Do not listen to people online who say these are optional. You don't need an expensive aftermarket setup. The factory steam vent tubes work just fine. And don't route them into the hot side of your water pump. Super powerful, customizable, and durable brushless fans came out in new cars around 2015. They are better in 7 ways. Consider upgrading to a used OEM brushless fan if you never want to deal with overheating. I have a $25 ebook on how to buy and install these fans. And also you can see my video for more info. Newer GM vehicles use a pressurized expansion tank, and you should too. This is the best way to cool your engine. This is what GM uses today. There are decades of GM engineering knowledge in this newest system, so use it. It's not 1969 anymore. Cooling system parts and the layout of the cooling system have improved, and using this newest layout will create a worry-free cooling setup. Mistake number 6, accidentally buying a 4.8 liter used engine when you thought you were buying a 5.3. The 4.8 and 5.3 look identical externally, and the blocks are exactly the same. Both blocks have the 4.8 liter / 5.3 liter casting mark on the driver's side. That's it. There is no way to tell externally, none. The cylinder bore is the same. The main difference is the 4.8 has a shorter stroke. The way you can tell is, if you have it, check the 8th digit of the VIN or the engine RPO code from the vehicle build sheet, if available. Or you can use a boroscope through the spark plug hole to identify. The 4.8 has flat piston tops, and the 5.3 has a very slight dish shape to the top of the piston. The dish is very subtle. It's only about 1 or 2 millimeters deep. You can also measure the actual stroke of the engine, but do it very carefully as the difference is less than ½ an inch. Number 5, I sometimes get emails or see comments on my videos of people saying they want to swap a LS into their V6 Silverado or V6 Camaro. Yes, you can, but you probably shouldn't. But there may be a few instances where it could make sense. Here's why not to do it. You can often buy a running V8 Silverado for less than what you'd spend on a quality swap. Even if the V6 truck you have was free, by the time you buy the engine and everything else needed for your swap, you could spend more money than if you just sold your V6 truck and bought a V8 truck. But it could make sense. If your V6 is dead or has 400,000 miles on it, then maybe go ahead and swap because you won't get much for the V6 truck if you sell it. Or you want to do a swap for the experience or some kind of custom build or as a father-son project? Yes, that's an amazing reason. Do it. Or you're planning huge horsepower and want to make tons of mods anyway? Or you want a specific drivetrain combo never sold by GM, like a 6-liter with a 4L80E and a short bed? Or even better, a 6-liter LS with an 8-speed 8 HP transmission? Mistake number 4 really frustrated me when I was planning an LS swap for my 68 Camaro. Originally my Camaro had a 2-speed power glide when I bought it. Years later I put in a turbo 350 3-speed. Then back in the late 2000s when I first started researching an LS swap, I thought, okay, I'm going to use the new 6-speed 6L80 automatic that came out in 2006. I went so far as upgrading my Camaro's rear axle ratio to a conservative 308 since the 6L80 has such a super aggressive first gear. Then, imagine my frustration when I learned that the 6L80 is huge, way taller and quite a bit wider than the Turbo 350. But it's the height that is the main problem. To install the 6L80 in an old muscle car, you have to cut the transmission tunnel. And even then, the transmission can end up being the lowest point under the car, which is not good. So to install the 6L80 meant I would have to toss my original center console, cut my transmission tunnel open, add 3/4 to an inch of clearance, and this was just something that I didn't want to do with my original car. So I thought, fine, I'm a hardcore manual transmission guy who's been daily driving a manual for over 20 years. I'll just convert the Camaro to a manual transmission. But used and worn out T56 transmissions are super expensive and they don't fit that great either. And aftermarket manuals are crazy money. But recently I discovered the 8HP70. This transmission is basically the same size as my Turbo 350, and it even comes in a smaller size that's even smaller. What most people do is they use an old 4-speed 4L80 transmission. But check out this image. The 8HP looks big compared to the 4L80, right? Except that it's the one on the left. That's the 4L80 on the right. As you can see, the 8HP in this instance is actually smaller than the 4L80. But if you take a really close look at this photo, the 8HP is about the same size, but it has 8 speeds. I know, I could not believe it either, but wait, there is more. It's also 60 pounds lighter than the 4L80. You may be like, Pete, how is that possible? You are full of it. Nope. It came out in 2009 and it uses the latest transmission technology. And this transmission has been used in modern Chrysler products for years. Chargers, Challengers, Dodge Ram trucks, Wranglers, all the Hellcat engines actually come with this transmission. I told you it was strong. But that's not even the best part. These transmissions are everywhere now, and used they can be had for less than the price of a 4L80. And they hold 700 horsepower stock and have a reputation for being indestructible. And it has a super aggressive first and second gearing, so it will make any car faster. And that's not even the best part. The 8HP also has many super cool features that you just can't get with an old school transmission. And this is just the short list. I would suggest you strongly consider swapping to this new transmission. This transmission will work with any LS engine, even carbureted LS engines. It'll even work with old Gen 1 small blocks. Okay, sorry to ramble on about this new A-Speed. I'm just so excited to tell you guys about this. This swap is blowing up right now, and it's soon going to be the most popular transmission swap for any vehicle. I have a brand new ebook on doing this swap. There's no other book about this swap yet. Check this ebook out if you are interested. Here is the 8HP ebook. I currently have a bunch of how-to ebooks as well as free ebooks based on my videos. All of them are at autoguild.com. Mistake number 3, getting a used LS engine with too many miles on it. Generally, I would say under 100,000 miles is ideal, although it's getting harder and harder to find lower miles engines. At this mileage, you still need to check the engine carefully, but you should be good to go. Between 100,000 and 200,000 miles is not typically a concern as long as the engine has been well maintained. But above 200,000 miles, and you may find the engine needs significant work. At this point, I would stop, ask yourself, are you planning to rebuild, or can you rebuild at a later date, since it may not last long? Fixes can be expensive with this mileage, and even if the engine is running, it's probably going to be pretty dang tired. I always keep in mind the maintenance history, how the vehicle was used, check the engine internals, and replace common problem parts before installing. Mistake number 2, not fixing well-known and common LS engine problems. This is page 247 straight from my LS Swap ebook. These are the top 6 fixes you should always do. My ebook has 23 problems broken down into 3 categories. Fixes you should always do on every swap, fixes you should do if needed, so inspect the potential problem issue and replace it as needed, or 3, fixes you should do only if you are planning to or have already disassembled the engine. These fixes can prevent frustrating problems down the road. The number 1 problem when LS swapping is not buying a complete engine. Let's say you buy this, since it's cheap. Then you spend the next few months trying to cobble together what's missing. You soon discover that the water pump outlet hits the 110mm Chinese throttle body you got on eBay, and your alternator pulley doesn't line up with your other pulleys. Then the decapped high-flow injectors that you needed won't fit the fuel rail that you bought on Facebook Marketplace. And you still don't even know if the ECU and E-pedal you bought on Craigslist will even talk to each other. Do you see where I'm going? To avoid this pain, let me state, buy everything together, everything. If you remember one thing from this video, remember this. And here is a list of exactly what you need. Another tip, when buying from a junkyard, remember that you are not a normal customer. Most people who buy a used engine are doing so because the engine in their vehicle is dead for whatever reason. They buy a used junkyard engine because it is cheaper than buying a new engine. So the junkyard cuts off all the wires since the customer vehicle already has an ECU, an E-pedal, throttle cables, wires, and connectors. They won't need that stuff, so they usually don't include it. But you need all of that stuff for your swap. So do not let the yard that pulls your engine cut the wires and harnesses and everything else. Make sure that you confirm this before you buy. Ask for a 100% complete engine with no cut wires or missing connectors. This is sometimes called a complete dropout or lift out. And I recommend buying this from yards that specifically focus on these pull-out or lift-out engines. These are terms that usually mean the whole engine with everything. If pulling an engine at a junkyard on your own or buying online, you can use this list too. Final tip, try getting the VIN of the donor vehicle if you can. That will make it easier to buy replacement parts for your engine. Remember, if you have to buy many of these parts listed here that you didn't get when you bought with your engine, the cost can add up quickly, and the parts you buy may not even work with the engine you have. Okay, what else have I forgotten? I'll make part 2 of this video if you can give me some more ideas. Let me know in the comments. Every single item listed on these Get Everything pages has a dedicated page in my ebook. Thank you for watching Auto Guild, and good luck with your project.